Hey, what is going on guys? This is Darsha and welcome back to another video on the channel. Today we're back with another Lord of the Rings Rise to War video, and in today's video we're going to be talking about how to build a formation. We're going to go through the different roles, for example your damage dealer, supports, tanks, etc., as well as the best commanders for each of those roles. However, before we get into it, I just want to say quickly, we are going to be doing a community-sponsored chest opening video, and everyone who does donate, we will be either shouting you out at the start of the video saying thank you to X, Y, and Z, or we'll have a credit scene at the end, like a movie credit, and we will list the names of everyone who does support. So regardless of how much it is, whether it's 50 cents, a dollar more, we will make sure to credit everyone. That being said, let's get straight into the video. So as I said, today's video is going to be focused on how to build a formation. And the reason I've decided to do this because, we haven't actually done too many tips and tricks / guide videos recently is because on my second account, so for those of you guys who remember, we did a content creator event server with NetEase and, different content creators fought over the server to try and win, and a lot of people just don't know how to build a formation, I had a lot of players, asking me for tips and for advice, and I decided, maybe let me put this video together because there seems to actually be, some newer players joining the game that would still benefit from guides. So yeah, we decided to put it together, and I hope you guys enjoy it. Now, first up, let's talk about the different roles within a formation. So obviously any formation has 4 commanders, right? So we can click over here, we can see this is my army, right? So we have our 4 commanders, and each commander has a specific role to play. So you have your main roles are basically, or your main categories, you could categorize them as damage dealers, whether it's army damage or commander damage. I guess those are your 2 subcategories to damage dealers. But you have your damage dealer category, you have your support category, which is basically any commander that does support stuff. For example, it's damage reduction, maybe lowering the enemy's stats, etc. Those are all your support style commanders. You have your tanks, aka commanders where they make their own units or themselves very tanky with high defense and stuff like that. And basically, allows any troops put on him or her to survive for much longer. And then you have your support commanders or your healers, I guess, which are commanders, that just do pure healing, So your troops take damage and they're going to heal that up and try to keep you in the fight for longer. So we have our different categories, but what do you want in a formation, right? What should your formation consist of? And as you can see by me, I run 2 damage dealers, right? So I run Gimli, he's a damage dealer, and as you can see, all his skills are damage based, and for Gimli particularly, well, Gimli, Dane, they are physical damage dealers. I also run 1 focus damage dealer, which is Galadriel. As you can see, she does focus damage, and then I run a support commander, so that is like Gandalf the Grey, and he does damage reduction. So as you can see, his White Council. Basically, all your commanders in your formation will receive less damage, and that effect is then modified by his focus stat. He also has some damage skills in terms of focus damage. He has one that also improves his army's damage, and he has a healing skill. So he's a support commander because he has a range of skills that can support your formation. And then I have Gil-galad. Gil-galad, he is, well, you see, you can classify him as a tank, or you can classify him as a damage, kind of, because he does have skills here that allows your units to become very strong and deal a lot of damage. However, he's more a support because most of his skills are support based. For example, Kingly Kin, very popular skill. It's going to allow all your Elvish units to evade damage. Not Alliance Leader, but High King, that increases attack and defense, which allows your units to become more tanky as well as deal a bit more damage. So he's more a tank / support commander. And in terms of making your formation, I say a good rule of thumb is 2 damage dealers. And I recommend commander damage over unit damage because when it comes to unit damage, I just feel for a unit damage setup to be effective, you need like 2 unit damage commanders together or 3 unit damage commanders. Since unit damage, commanders that do buff units tend to also buff their defense or buff their healing or stuff like that. So when you run a bunch of them together, they tend to synergize pretty well. though unfortunately they still don't have that insane damage. Well, they don't have the same damage output as a damage commander. Obviously, you can kind of you can kind of make them as good as a damage commander, but it requires more investment both in terms of gear as well as respect level. But actually, let me just quickly show you, right? So my second formation is a full cavalry formation, and they actually do really well. Even in PvP, they do decent. I don't use them personally in PvP because they're just not going to hold up to all the enemy formations I'm going up against, because all my gold gear, all my good stuff is on my main formation. These guys all have purple only. But if they had full gold, so like if they had all the best unit attack and unit defense gear, all fully gold, fully strengthened, and fully refined, they would actually do really well in PvP, because Theoden, for example, he buffs all the units, right, in all his formations. He attack mounted units in 3 allied formations, he increases attack. Mounted units in 3 allied formations deal damage, increases attack. This skill is his own, but he basically, all these commanders have skills that increase attack or defense or healing or damage dealt by units in all the formations, or for all the commanders in that formation. So unit damage is viable, but I do think it's better to run it when you have a full formation dedicated to it. But for a normal formation, I recommend 2 damage dealers, whether it's physical damage or focus damage, it's up to you. I run a bit of both, mostly because I like Galadriel as a character, so I invested in her early on, so I kind of just have to stick with it whether I want to or not. Though I would probably possibly switch out to Dane if I could, but Galadriel's actually pretty nice, and it's nice to have some focus damage in it. So you'll have your 2 damage dealers. Then I recommend having at least 1 support guaranteed, right? So a commander like Gandalf the Grey or another commander. Then for your 4th choice now, you're a bit more open, right? You can run a tank, aka a commander that will maybe, make the defense of his units very high. So if you want to, you could run like a Gil-galad, a Falcons, something like that. And then you could run gear that increases unit defense. And then you could run a unit like Swan Knights on him. Now what that will do is Swan Knights, they will basically protect a unit from another commander. And because their defense and stuff is going to be so high, they're going to take a lot less damage, aka they're going to tank damage for another commander and their units. So you could run a tank or you could run a healer. It's up to you, right? But your go-to like 3 that you should always have is 2 damages and a support. Your 4th can be a damage as well, but I feel if you do that, your 3rd damage tends to die too early and you don't get the best value. You can run a healer just with pure healing. That's going to help, keep your other commanders in the fight a bit longer. You could run a 2nd support, though you need to make sure the skills synergize well. Or you could run a tank, and run a unit like Swan Knights or something that is going to make him an effective tank. Now, we're going to go through the different good side commanders, and we're going to talk about which commanders are best suited for each role, okay? So we have quite a few good side commanders. I think we have everyone on. Okay, we have nearly everyone unlocked, besides like 3 people, one of which is pretty new to the game. And we should honestly do this for Evil as well, though I don't play Evil. I've never played Evil in all 19 seasons, and therefore my knowledge when it comes to Evil commander builds is not the greatest. But if you guys do want to see me do a how to build your formation guide for Evil commanders specifically, let me know down below in the comments section. And what I will do then is, because I don't have the knowledge, I will reach out to a couple of, the friends I have in game that do play Evil, and I will get their opinions and stuff on Evil commander builds and speak to maybe a couple of the other YouTubers, even though they don't play or make videos anymore. I can, ask them for some advice on Evil commander builds and, put together a video for you guys. Though I personally don't have the knowledge, so I'm going to obviously reach out to more experienced players when it comes to Evil side. But for good side now, let's go through and have a look at all your damage dealers, okay? I'm not going to do it in order, but I will mention it, in order. Well, I will try and tell you, this is your best choice, this is your second best choice. But for your damage dealers, from T2, you have 2 effective choices, or should I say 2 very good choices, and you have like 1/2 decent ones, right? So your 2 best choices for a damage dealer from T2 is obviously going to be Gimli in first place, because Gimli is just absolutely amazing amazing relic, amazing skills. Your second best choice is going to be Legolas. Legolas also comes with 3 damage skills, Greenleaf, the Fair, and Dwarf Friend, and he also has a pretty nice unique that does a bunch of extra damage once you get it and refine it. Your third choice is actually going to be someone like Aragorn, right? So Aragorn, he's got 2 solid damage skills, right? He's got Anduril and he's got Strider, but his other skills, well, you see, this increases attack of men, this increases defense of allied formations. So it's a decentish kind of support skill, but in terms of pure damage, he's not going to be able to do as much damage as Gimli or Legolas, just because he doesn't have that third damage skill. We're going to go down, let's see if there's anyone else that would actually make a good damage from T2. You do have Dwalin, he's a T1, but once you ascend him and stuff, he can actually be a pretty solid damage as well. You have Experienced Warrior, you have Durin's Blood, and then your third skill is again, he won't do as much damage as Legolas or Gimli, but you can have him, you could run him with 2 damage skills, and your third skill being Heal with Musician, or you could run him with Adventurer, which is going to make your Dwarvish units, so you have to run Dwarvish units on him, a bit stronger. But he is still a decent damage. He has 2 damage skills and a third skill, which is a support skill, just like Aragorn 2. Balin, I don't think so. He's got Revivalist, which is a solid damage / support skill, because it has a chance to inflict stun, and it also restores some health. You have Durin's Blood as well, and you have Warrior of the Lonely Mountain, which is more a support skill. You could run it, but he's not going to do as well, I think, as the others. Let's see. Faramir, I mean, if you get Faramir if you ascend him fully, can he? I mean, he could do okay again, but he's not going to be as effective because, his base stats are just going to take so much more investment to get up there. So what I would say is, for damage, right, from T2s and below, your best choice is Gimli or Legolas, and your second best choice is Aragorn 2 or Dwalin. Okay, so those are the 4 damage dealers you can pick for your damage commander slots from T2 and below. For your tier 3s now, you have the best option, which is obviously Dane Ironfoot, King of the Lonely Mountains. He is absolutely amazing. He's got 3 incredible skills, like, goddamn, there's nothing more you could want. Ironfoot, Durin's Blood, King Under the Mountain, and you're just going to see him absolutely destroy. He's literally he is one of the most meta damage commanders for good side in the game. So obviously you're going to have Dane. Now you do have Bjorn as well. Wait, where is Bjorn? Ah, there we go. He's down here. You do have Bjorn as well. He is a very, very, very strong damage commander as well. And the most meta formation, in fact, has 2 damage commanders who are Dane and Bjorn. So obviously, for a player who doesn't invest as much, that's why I went over the T2 and below options like Gimli and Legolas, and then Aragorn and Dwalin as well. But yeah, he has Skin Changer, a ton of attack. You have Anduin Veiled Chieftain, a bunch more attack. Enemy of the Orcs, even more attack. Forest Guardian, yeah, you don't really want that. It's just more support skill. But your main choices for damage overall is going to be Dane and Bjorn at the top. They're going to be the best. Obviously, they are mythics as well, so they are going to be a bit harder for you to get respect towards, etc. So your more budget options will be Legolas and Gimli, as well as Aragorn 2 and Dwalin. Now, let's go over to your support category. And this is a lot of skills categorized as support, but there are 2 commanders that shine, okay? Your budget option is going to be Gandalf the Grey. And as a good side player, pretty much everyone should have Gandalf, because I'm pretty sure when you start the game, some of the purchase rewards literally gives you Gandalf respect. So, you're going to be able to get him up to like R4, which is the minimum. Actually, no, you only need him at R2. Yeah, you only need him at R2 to get White Council. And so yeah, at R2 he becomes a pretty effective support. And then obviously you have the more expensive but much better Gandalf the White. And Gandalf the White and Gandalf the Grey, both of them amazing support commanders for you to use. Their biggest skill is White Council, but Gandalf the White's slightly better because he also has White Rider, which makes 3 enemy formations, or it's 3, right? Yeah, it's 3 enemy formations take a bunch of extra damage from your commanders. So that's a very helpful skill. His other two skills are just focus damage, which I mean you're gonna have high focus on him anyway, so it's gonna just make him more effective. Gandalf the Grey, he's got the White Council, but his second skills are not as effective. He's got the damage skill, focus damage skill, he's got the unit damage, and he does have the healing as well if you want to get some healing going. So your two most effective supports are going to be one of the Gandalf variants, either the Grey or the White. You do have a couple more options, right? So you have, where is our boy Boromir? So you have Boromir, right? He is actually a decent support commander. The problem is he's just not as good. His skills aren't as good as someone else, right? But he's still pretty solid, and you could use him. So he has Warden, right, which gives 3 allied formations. They gain I think at max level this is 45. Yeah, 45% chance to evade damage taken from the first 4 hits. First 5 in total. And the reason this is not as good is because it's only a 45% chance for one. And 2, it's not the first 2 rounds, it's the first 5 hits. Which remember, there's 4 commanders in the enemy formation plus the units, so that's like 8 hits already. So you're probably going to run out after round 1 or round 2. But he is a solid support that you can run because he has evasion. He's also got here, which increases defense. Warden is just a damage, so it's not really a support skill. But he has the Horn of Gondor, which will increase the attack of allied formations. So you could use him as a support if you don't have either Gandalf the Grey or Gandalf the White and you're really struggling. You could go with Boromir because he is a decent support slash... Well, yeah, he's a support commander. He doesn't have any healing, so you can't classify him as a healer. And you can't really classify him as a tank, though you kind of could because, you know, he increases defense of commander's formation as well as attack. But yeah, he's a support, and he's a solid support, though obviously to use him effectively, you would need to ensure he's ascended at least to legendary, but preferably, you know, all the way to mythic to make sure, you know, he is going to do the best for you that he can. Another option is it Merry and Pippin or is it Frodo and Sam? Actually, let me check. Damage by... Okay, it's Frodo and Sam, but yeah, you could use the Hobbit boys as a tank because they do have a skill, Ring Bearers, which the commander's formation unit has a X amount, so I think that's, 35% chance to evade damage taken, and they have, at max level, it doesn't inflict madness on them at all, so basically 35% chance to reduce the amount of damage they take. And when this is at max, Master Bag End, they will also take 30% less damage received, and the downside to that is only that they will do 10% less damage. But you could run Frodo and Sam as a very effective tank, okay, because of Ring Bearers giving his formation unit a chance to evade damage, and Master of Bag End making his formation unit take 30% less damage. So you could run him with Swan Knights, and if you run him with Swan Knights, you know, Swan Knights are going to protect one of your allied commanders and take the damage instead, and even though they're going to be taking the damage, they're going to take 30% less damage, and they could also just evade the damage completely. So Frodo and Sam is a very effective tank. Who else? We have, so in terms of support, you have Boromir, you have Gandalf the Grey and Gandalf the White. The rest of these guys are more going to be healers and tanks. So for healers and tanks, as I said, you've got Frodo and Sam. You have Arwen as well, actually. She has half Elven, right, which increases the attack of man or elf units in the commander's formation. And this increases it by 30. So 30 bonus attack, 30 bonus defense, which is then further modified by her command stat. And you could use her as a tank, but you could use her as a tank slash support because she also has Endomiel, which is a pretty solid healing skill. So basically, whenever you take damage, you recover HP and you recover 150% HP, which is very, very solid. You also have Queen of the Reunited Kingdoms. This will increase the defense of 3 allied formations, and it increases it by 40, which is then further modified by a command stat, but it does decrease by 1/5 each time you do take damage. But you can run Arwen as as a decently effective tank slash support commander if you want. You also have, so wait, do I have him unlocked? I don't have Isildur unlocked, but yeah. Isildur is a very solid commander as well. He has ring bearers, right? Which again gives you a chance to evade damage, and it doesn't inflict damage when at level 5 or above, so you basically have a chance to just evade damage. You have King of the Dunedain, which gives you a chance to have dual blows, so as you can see when maxed out, so you have to run men units, but at maxed out you have a 50% chance to gain dual blows each round, which is going to allow his units to do a lot more damage. You have Last Alliance, which increases defense by 50, but however it increases your defense by 50, right, for 3 allied formations, but you do reduce that effect each time you take damage, so that's something to remember. But you can run him as well as a pretty solid tank slash support command. Well, he's more tank than support, so as a pretty solid tank commander. Now, where else do we have? No, I don't really use any of these guys, don't like them enough. But there we go, we have Felgen. Felgen is a very solid tank commander. However, his downside is you do have to run him with the Dwarvish units. So if we have a look, you can see he has Thrain's Guards, right? Damage taken by Dwarf units in 3 allied formations from the first 6 hits, which is then modified to 8 hits, but 30%. And the damage taken reduction is modified further by a command stat. So basically, if you run Dwarvish units on your formation, Felgen is going to ensure 3 allied formations take 30% less damage on their Dwarvish units for the first 8 instances of damage, and that effect is then further modified, or so that 30% is further modified to higher amounts depending on his command stat. He also has Arid Lured Formation, so for each formation composed of dwarf units in your army, defense of the commander's formation plus 10 stacks up to 2 times and then further up to 3 times at level 5, so basically 30 extra defense, and that is for each formation of dwarves. So if you're running a full dwarvish formation, right, so you have 3 or 4 units of dwarves, that's going to be what, 10, that's going to be 40 times 2 stacks, that's going to be like an extra 80, 120 defense. So it's a lot of extra defense on himself. It's a bunch of damage reduction for allied dwarvish units, and then you can either have some healing as well as removing debuffs, or you could have some damage with Durin's Blood. So it makes Felgen a very effective tank commander. Now, let's see who else. Haldir used to be so good, I miss him. You have King of Men. King of Men is a pretty solid damage dealer because you have Anduril and Strider, and then you have King of Men, which for the first 5 rounds it reduces, increases damage dealt by your units, and when they are affected by stun or madness, it makes them take a lot less damage, which is pretty helpful, especially fighting evil, since evil has a lot of stuns, a lot of madness inducing skills. So if you're using King of Men against them, and your commander's formation does get stunned or put under madness, they're going to take 30% less damage while they're affected by that. That's also then modified by command stat. So it's going to be a pretty helpful skill to have, and on a pretty good commander, because you could run him with 2 damage skills, so he's going to be doing a lot of damage, and then you're going to also have King of Men, which is going to help your entire formation take less damage, whenever they're affected by stun or madness, as well as deal a bit more damage. So he's more a damage dealer with a support stat, that with a support skill built in. But yeah, you can choose to run him. Thorin is also very solid, right? So you have Oaken Shield, which is damage. You have King of Druin's Folk. That is, you see, this is increasing damage dealt by units, but it's not bad, right? You have the Bold as well. Units in commander's formation struck by normal attack deals an additional damage to enemy formation up to 10 stacks. So that's like a pretty nice, retaliatory skill. So you have 1 pure damage. You have a unit buff. You have a little retaliatory damage, and then you have Revivalist, which is both a damage skill as well as a chance for stunning and some healing. So you can run Thorin as like a support commander more than anything else. He's not a pure damage because he only has 1 skill himself, but he does increase unit damage and stuff as well as do some support stuff, so you could run him there as well. Now Eomer. We cannot forget Eomer, right? Eomer is a very solid damage dealer. You can run Marshal of the Mark and Eodig, and that makes him do a lot of commander damage. Then if you're running all mounted units, then you can also have Riders of Rohan, which will make your mounted units in his formation have a 60% chance to take 30% less damage, which is very helpful and will make him able to survive, while make his units able to survive longer while he deals all the damage. So that's pretty much going to be all the different options you have. We did kind of go, a little bit jumping from one category to the other. So we're going to just quickly go over and recap everything we spoke about in this video. Okay. So for anyone who, doesn't want to watch the whole video, you can skip ahead here. I will leave a chapter to it as well. And then, just get the rundown of everything. So first things first, in your formation, you have 4 commanders. You have different roles. You have damage dealers, you have supports, you have healers, and you have tanks. Okay, damage dealers are broken down into unit damage and commander damage. We're not going to look at unit damage, though it can be effective, though I find it to be most effective if you're running a full formation of unit damage commanders. Now, for your commander damage, you're going to have 2 commander damage commanders in your formation. Your third spot is going to always go to a support, and your fourth slot is going to be a little bit more up to you. I personally think you should run a second support commander, but you can swap that out and run a tank commander or run a healer. You can even run a third damage commander, though it will not be as effective unless that third damage has a support skill as well. So now we're going to have a look at the best commanders for each role. So first, we're going to mention damage dealers only, okay? So your damage commanders, your best damage commanders are going to be Dane, so Dane over here, followed by Beorn, which is over here. Now, they are both mythics, and you do have some cheaper options. That's going to be Gimli, he's a T2, as well as Legolas, who's also a T2. You are going to have other damage commanders now that are not going to be as effective because they have a support skill built in as well. However, you could run them as that third commander if you really wanted, because they have 2 damage skills and they have a support skill that will kind of help out as well. And those commanders are going to be, where is he? Aragorn 2, who is pretty solid. He has a unit buff for defense as his support skill, as well as Dwalin, who's got 2 attack skills and then has a decent support skill. You also have, where is King of Men? Aragorn 2, King of Men. He's got 2 damage, and then he has a pretty decent support skill that will actually make your entire formation take less damage when they're under stun or madness. So very, very solid support skill on him. But those are going to be your main choices, okay? Dane, Gimli, Beorn, Legolas, Aragorn 2, King of Men, as well as Dwalin. Next up, we're going to look at your pure support commanders. That's going to be your Gandalf the Grey and your Gandalf the White. Those are going to be the best 2 options for support, though you do also have options that are like Boromir. He is a epic commander only, and he's pretty decent as well, so you could run him as a support if you really wanted. You do have commanders as well, like Arwen. She is a solid support and she has healing, so she can do a bit of both. That's very nice to have. You have, where is he? You have Thorin, who's got a bunch of support skills for units, which is pretty nice to have, pretty helpful. You have Gil-galad. I don't know if we actually mentioned, I think we may have forgotten to mention Gil in the section dedicated to support earlier, but very, very, very good. In fact, probably one of the best supports you can have. The problem is it does lock you to using Elvish units. You have Kingly Kin, which will give you a nice chance to evade enemy damage. You have Alliance Leader, which increases his formation's damage. And you have High King, which increases the attack and defense of allied formations. You also have Icicle, which at level 5 gives you a stun and will allow you to stun an enemy unit every here and there. Now, you also have a couple tank options. Your tank options are going to be Felgen, very solid, but you have to use him with dwarves. You could also run Frodo and Sam. Yeah, Frodo and Sam doesn't lock you into using any one specific type of unit, right? Yeah, it doesn't. You can run him with any unit type. So Frodo and Sam, also a very solid tank. You do have another option in Isildur. Isildur is a solid support. He's not really a tank. I mean, he kind of is because of ring bearers, but he's a very solid support commander that you could run as well. You have Balin. Balin has some healing. He's got some healing as well as some damage, and then he has some attack and defense boosting stuff. But not the best option. I don't see him run that often, but he is a solid choice, if he's someone you have unlocked at a decent level. But yeah, those are going to be most of... Ooh, I don't know if I mentioned Galadriel, but very, very good damage commander, though she is, once again, a damage commander with 2 damage stats only. Her 3rd and 4th skills are both healing. But you can run her as, that 3rd damage that has some healing, or you could run her as a pure healer with the 2 healing skills and have 1 skill damage, which is then her little bit of damage / madness inducing support. So yeah, you have a pretty varied roster. You for your damage dealers, you have Gimli, you have Dane, you have Beorn, you have Legolas, you have Aragorn 2, and you have Dwalin. For your supports, you have Gandalf the Grey, Gandalf the White, and Boromir pretty much as your best 3. Obviously, Gandalf the White's best, the Grey is 2nd, and Boromir is 3rd. For tanks, your best 2 options are going to be, Felgen or Frodo and Sam, though you also have options like Isildur and stuff as well. And then for your 4th slot, you have a bunch of varied commanders. You can go with a damage, like Galadriel, or a healer like Galadriel who has some damage stats. You can go with a person like Arwen who has healing. You can go with any of the commanders we've already mentioned, right? Arwen, Galadriel, Aragorn 2, King of Men. You can go with Gil-galad, obviously, absolutely amazing support commander there. And yeah, it's just up to you, honestly. Again, in terms of evil, I don't know enough when it comes to the evil commanders to include them in this video. However, if we want a dedicated video to evil alone, we can make that happen, but I will have to reach out to some of my friends who play evil, as well as other people that have, more knowledge and more experience when it comes to evil commanders, so I can put together a video that's going to be helpful for you guys. Anyways, if you guys have enjoyed this video, please do drop a like, comment, and subscribe to the channel, and I do apologize for rambling on for so long, but I'll see you guys in the next video. konnichiwa